and welcome to Talk This.
It's dangerous to podcast alone.
I'm your Ollie daughter in Pittsburgh host, Madelyn.
I'm very curious what the second part is. I'm your other host. Sorry, did you not get that? I said,
Oh, I know what this is. Okay, welcome to the show. It's the 6-week side quest. Save data. What have we been playing since early October side quest? Pre-Thanksgiving side quest. Aren't you all lucky that my side quest didn't fall on one of the Thanksgiving weeks?
So lucky. Because we
Instead,
know Thanksgiving is such a prominent holiday in video games.
Look, if people eat food, could have done food or something. I don't know. Whatever. I have 2 whole weeks going with my side quest
I think
topic.
food would be a legitimate topic.
Well, yeah, but you made fun of my Thanksgiving topic. You were like, oh, Thanksgiving, that's terrible. Just you wait. I'm gonna do games for early December for you as our side quest in 2 weeks.
Thanksgiving is not the only time people eat food, Madeline.
Some, according to some. Anyway, it's our 6-week side quest. We've been playing some games. Emma, I've got 5. I got 5.
I have my requisite 2 regular updates and then 7.
Well, then I guess you'd better start.
No, it's like 6. I don't know.
That's still 8 games. That's still 3 more than me.
My requisite updates, there was a new chapter of Near Reincarnation at the very beginning of the 6-week cycle. I had to look up when our last episode was to see if it was before or after, because I think it was like a couple of days after that it came out. Continues to be interesting. So the main characters are brother and sister. And I think the main thing that they're sort of setting up with the chapter stories too, of like, they're coming in pairs, the characters this time, and they always have like very radically different views on sort of the same sequence of events. It's sort of tying to this brother and sister have very radically different views on like their parents' divorce in interesting ways. So I'm very curious as to what they're going to do with that. There's just the one more chapter of Sun, and then there'll be a matching number of chapters for each character. And then I don't know what they'll do after that, so I guess we'll see. I imagine the next one will be dramatic. Dramatique, even.
How many years are we from it just deleting your data, do you think?
I mean, I think they'll just do that when the servers close.
Right.
That's sort of, like, symbolically, they'll do it symbolically. You can do it before they do it.
Yeah.
They're doing a crossover right now with the Sino Alice, which is the other mobile game. Yeah. That they did close the servers in, like, Thailand area? Like, Southeast Asia servers. And they could delete your data. You could do the final mission and delete your data before they deleted it. So.
Classic.
Proof of concept.
A genre staple.
I think I said last time that, like, I was going to have Rune back.
You didn't cover your mouth quite enough for that one. It kind of still came through.
I wished for the listeners to still know who I was talking about.
I gotcha.
I don't quite have him back. We're in the process of the rescue mission, and in that process, it's doing that thing where, like, you split into, like, 3 parties. So I got the girls, the boys, and Rune and his cat are the other party. So sort of what's happening is, like, he's been imprisoned, right? And, like, because his power went out of control at the end of the 3rd game, and he's become, like, a monstrous beast version of himself.
Sure.
Out of, rage and grief. And I like the concept of this. It's like the power that he has is, like, fraying the edges of, like, his existence. like his self-identity. And it's sort of representing this by writing his name in like staticky text, which I think I mentioned last time.
Yes.
And also now when people say it in the game, or at least when his cat says it in the game so far, it sounds like they have like a hand over their mouth and they're saying it sort of muffled, like from far away. So it's like, what are you doing? Like that.
Emma, it's crazy that you're like running so far away from your microphone to get that effect.
Yeah, I know. And really, the editor is really doing a lot of work here. The professional editor, cutting out the time of me running across my apartment. I'm really hoping when the kids get to him, they like acknowledge that his name is like messed up in the boundaries of the world. I think I will really like it if they do that. If it's just sort of a meta thing, I'll be like, okay, that's cool, that's neat. It's a neat little effect. But I really want it to be in-game as well. Like, they're trying to say his name, and it, like, won't come through right. Because I think that's neat.
Like a Kingdom Hearts 2 kind of homage. Yeah, when they can't say it with a word.
Oh, when they can't say the word. Yeah, kind of like that, I guess. Yeah.
Are the kiddos having a good time? All you talk about is Reen. What about the kids?
I love the kids. They're so good. I was so distraught because they've split into girls and boys with like the original Class 7 and the kids, which means I finally have to put characters that aren't the kids into the main party.
Boo.
Which just sucks. Well, it sucks because I had to spend like 30 minutes equipping 3 additional characters. That's what really, that's really the main issue there. I just hadn't put anything on them at all until then because I wasn't using them. So
I'm glad the kids are doing good.
They're here to slap some sense into their teacher, I guess. So
as they should. All right, well, here's the blast in the past you didn't see coming. We picked up Ollie Ollie World again here this week. The trauma from PS4 Gate has finally faded enough that I can go back to playing Ollie Ollie World without just constantly thinking of my PlayStation, like, self-destructing.
Didn't they have a big update recently?
I think that they did, and that might have been what put it kind of back in my brain. Although, frankly, it's just one of those games that Click Like Boyfriend every once in a while is like, you know what we should start playing again? You know what I've had a craving to be playing again? Ollie Ollie World. And so we are. We're back to, we had been before trading off on it. We've pretty quickly gotten back to, like, about where we were. I don't quite remember where we were, but I don't think we made it much past, like, starting World 3 of 5 or so, and we're almost at the end of World 2. It's a lot easier when it's, like, you already know all of the controls. Like, I remember the first time playing through, it took me a long time to realize you could do tricks by, like, rotating your analog stick. I mean, they teach you that eventually, but if you were a smart person, you'd probably just figure it out on your own. And so, even though I was really clear, I was like, we don't have to, like, chase off after all the objectives here. Like, we don't have to get all that. We already did it. Like, we don't have to do it again. We have indeed gone for completing all of the bonus challenges on every level again.
Of course you have.
I can't help myself. It's Click Boyfriend is driving it. It's not me. It's him.
I meant you as in a plural you. So.
You're right. That is a fair way to categorize us these days. So yes. But it's, still super charming. I don't really exactly remember the old character design, but we once again have like a character with like, funny pastel colored skin and a mustache. So that's consistent. I do remember that much. And I do think I must have retained like some skill, because these challenges, like some of these challenges I remember us doing like over and over and over the first time. There's a level where it's like a special level that just has one challenge where you're skateboarding, right? In case you missed the Ollie Ollie World summary way back this spring when we talked about it on the show and I was playing it and then my PlayStation self-destructed, yada yada yada. It's a skateboarding like platformer? Is that what we decided it was? Skateboarding platformer, sort of
Yeah.
situation? I just couldn't remember how we described the game.
I don't know.
So there's one level where, like, the whole goal is you're racing this bear to the end of the level. And I remember the first time, my boyfriend and I did this level, like, felt like 30 times before we managed to get it. And this time, it only took, like, 4 or 5. So
That's the power of the PS5.
apparently, yeah. I'm not noticing, I will say yes. So I am playing the PS5 version of Ollie World now as opposed to the PS4. I'm not really noticing a difference at all. Nothing too haptic about it. So maybe the sounds coming out of the controller are a little bit crisper, but
I mean, is it updated to a PS5 version, or is
yes.
it just playing it on the PS5?
No, I am playing the PS5 version of Ollie World.
I
think. I assume. I actually haven't taken too close of a look, but I did accidentally download both, and I'm pretty sure we're playing the PS5 one, so.
Alright.
I mean, I don't know what about this game. Like, it's not photorealistic. Like, what would look better about it?
Maybe the frame rate is higher. I don't know.
I can't see frames. As we've established. Anyway, I'm looking forward to continuing Ollie World. It'll be a good game to have around when his family is here at Thanksgiving, I think. It's, like, entertaining to watch. Maybe? Potentially entertaining to watch.
So, I haven't watched it.
Well, you're missing out. But it's a good game to trade off on, I think, and, like, pretty intuitive, I hope. We'll see. Will it be the next game that Clickbait Boyfriend's mom gets, like, really into? Is it on the Switch? I don't know. Time will tell. Anyway, back over to you.
Well, worth mentioning that I did play the first 3 episodes of We Are OFK. I didn't find the time to do the last 2 in the last week. So I don't have too much new to say about it that we didn't cover last week on our episode. I'll find the time to play the last 2 episodes before going home for the holidays. Just there's been a lot of games this month that I've been playing. So and sitting down for an hour sometimes seems daunting. The fact that they give me how long each episode is in the menu conversely makes me not want to play it.
Yeah.
Is that weird?
A little. Do you like the music? Is the music your speed?
Yeah, I mean, it's pop music. I'm not very into music these days. I used to be very into music in, like, high school. And now I don't have the time for it.
What do you think happened to us? I feel the same way, but I sort of felt like musical theater school kind of killed it for me. But you don't have that excuse.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what killed it.
Do you feel like Taylor Swift should make a game like this? I'm reading a lot about Taylor Swift.
She could make a game. Making a game seems her brand.
But like this, not like the Kardashian games. Well, I could see her making like the Kardashian games too. What?
Not like the Kardashian games. No one should make a game like the Kardashian games.
I know, but I could see Taylor Swift doing that, is why I mention it.
Okay.
Like dress up Taylor.
Anyway, that one doesn't count as one. I remembered that I did play that, and I should mention it.
Oh my god, you've played so many games. Okay, keep going. I can't believe that didn't even count. You're like, oh yeah, this game that I played like 4 hours of, it doesn't count. Okay, next one. Next.
I played a game called Fuga Melodies of Steel.
Booga Melodies of Steel?
Yes.
Booga?
Fuga.
That's not less silly, but okay. Fuga Melodies of Steel. Got it.
I thought you were making a comment that's of steel. You're like, oh, you already talked about this.
Oh, that would have been a funny thing to say, but I'm glad you said it for me.
Yeah, you're welcome. So it's made by CyberConnect 2, that they make a lot of, like, branded games, but over, like, the whole course of their history, they've been making, like, this little, I guess, passion project series called Little Town something. I can't remember what the series name is, but they're all set. They have 2 games, like, on the DS and 3DS, and they're all set in this sort of world of like cat and dogs people. Like, humans were extinct, and then some point down the line, like, cats and dogs evolved into the next sort of humanoid species that took over the world.
Like
and
Jeff.
there's also, like, very different land masses and stuff as well.
You just ignored that comment, which is for the best. Go
What
on.
did you say?
I said, like Jeff.
Like Jeff? Oh yeah, Catboy Jeff. Forgot. He loves Stray so much because he's a cat boy.
We all know that Jeff, I think more of a Khajiit, but anyway, go on.
Anyway, Fuga is a prequel to their previous games. It's set in an earlier place in this timeline. It's basically it's sort of like Cat and Dog World War II, I guess. But also with I guess not also with, but with different kinds of cruel human experimentation.
Oh, okay, great.
I guess dog and cat experimentation. Anyway, I think they're the Bernards. Or the bird knots. There's some German thing on Bernards. Are sort of invading the surrounding lands that are vaguely French coded, I guess. And you take on the role of these children, this group of children, whose village was attacked, and they were led by this mysterious voice on the radio to a tank that was buried in a cave on the outskirts of their village. And they get into this tank in order to rescue their village from wherever the attacking army has taken them. But this tank comes with a fun little catch of it has this thing called the soul cannon. And so the tutorial thing, they don't tell you what it does really. They just pick someone to go into the soul cannon so that you can win this fight. And guess what the soul cannon runs on?
What does it run on?
Souls.
Oh.
So whoever you sacrifice to the soul cannon, you automatically win the fight, but you're down a child. And so you're sort of moving your way across the land. So your tank is on a linear path in each level, and you can choose what path you want to go on. So there's safe paths, normal paths, and dangerous paths. And you sort of manage the health of your tank as you go by picking up supply drops, hitting item places, healing during fights, and you pick which route you go based on what the state of your tank is. And there's various intermissions where you can improve your tank or build bonds between the children that you pick up and put into this tank, or do various other activities to sort of either boost your abilities in combat or help the children get to know each other or whatever. And so there's when you first use the soul cannon, all of your children get depressed and they are annihilated, and there's a rewind of time so that you don't have to, you don't immediately lose a child if you don't want to.
That's good.
But at the end of each level, there is a boss battle, and whenever you hit below a certain threshold of health, the soul cannon option will unlock, and this mysterious voice on the radio will be like, it's the only way. You must destroy one of your children. Even when you're no, I can just heal on the next turn, stupid radio voice. But it's really good at even when you're I know that I don't have to use it, right? The UI is glowing, pulsing purple, standing out from all of the other buttons. And every time you go below a threshold, that gets less and less each time as the chapters go on, suspiciously. It's shows up you could just end the battle here. You could just do it. You could just kill a child. And it's just, it's sort of weirdly scratched the Fire Emblem part of my brain, I guess, in terms of balancing all the sorts of stuff that you have to balance. And I really, really, really enjoyed it. They're making a sequel to it that's supposed to come out next year. That's going to apparently be just a little bit more involved. Interestingly, they're pushing a big patch for the original that has a lot of the quality of life improvements that they've worked on for the sequel, which I think is a really neat step that they're taking, because it makes sense, right? You want people to get to the sequel, so if you've made a lot of quality of life improvements, maybe you put that back into the predecessor. That sort of makes sense, but not really something that people do. So,
well, looking forward to Booga Tuga then.
Fuga.
I know, but truly when you said Fuga for the first time after that, I almost corrected you. I was like, it's Booga. seriously. So now I'm never going to be able to say it right.
But really neat little game. It's on. I got it because it came on Game Pass. So I finally got around to playing it.
Did you with your little Xbox playing your little Game Pass games?
We'll have a lot of Xbox things to hit you up with, so look forward to it.
You with that little Xbox, that's holding everybody back. I don't know if you heard about that. You with your Series S. Developers hate it.
Sorry. I love my little Xbox.
Well, speaking of games about children, I continued to play The Last of Us. I know what you were thinking, listeners. You thought for sure Madelyn played pretty much up exactly to the point where she stopped the first time for the podcast a couple of weeks ago. So there's no way that she continues to play the game. But you were wrong. I did continue to play the game. Ha ha ha. So we officially made it. I'm sorry. I know that we talked about this as the new game. I cannot treat this as the new game. I'm going to talk about some light spoilers, I guess. Not even spoilers. Not even like the spoiler from The Last of Us. But I didn't realize that the entire game wasn't, here we go, set in Boston. So...
You didn't know the entire game was... Man, Malin.
Everyone's like, it's a Boston game.
It's not a Boston game.
Well, I thought it was. I only ever played right up to the point where you drive out of Boston.
But then they drove out of Boston.
Well, I didn't ever get to that part. I got to the part where we were in that little house with Bill.
I see.
That was it.
Well, that part's technically not in Boston.
It's like the Boston suburbs.
I guess.
They like walked there. It has to still plausibly be sort of in Boston. So yeah, we're in Pittsburgh. So daughter in Pittsburgh, that's where the opening came from. It confused you. Ollie Ollie, Pittsburgh daughter, whatever I said. I am not very good at this game. I think I'm probably better than people will think that I am when I say repeatedly on the show that I'm not very good at this game. But I'm still not very good.
I don't remember having to be very good at that game, so...
Yeah, I mean, that's true. And, you know, something that's like, I'm perpetually sort of laughing at, like, the inconsistencies of the stealth mechanics, right? It's like, oh, I can choke anybody out anywhere, and it's silent. But, like, God forbid I accidentally throw a bottle into a wall when I'm hiding.
Well, that's not silent, Mal.
That was a joke. I felt very accomplished when I got through like a big set piece with like 2 floors of dudes, and I managed after my like 10th try to get through it. Although that did not feel like an area where I could plausibly have stealthed my entire way through. I will say this is the kind of thing that doesn't usually bother me at all. Like, when have I ever talked about save systems on this show? But they couldn't have, speaking of quality of life improvements, they couldn't have, like, fixed up the save system just a little bit for the remaster. I don't have the new one. I just have the remaster.
Does it just look like the PS3 saving? Like
no, it's standard? Not the UI of it. It's the, like, you can save, you have an option in the menu to save the game at any time. And I understand why it won't let you save, like, in the middle of an encounter or something like that. Like, I get that. You don't want people to be able to, like, exploit that, I guess. That's fine. But whenever I start playing, I feel like I've been set back a couple of minutes from where I actually was. Sometimes, like, oftentimes it'll be like, oh, like, I get to, like, a safe area, and I go around and I loot it all, and then I save my game.
Yeah.
And then almost always when I load it, it's like, I have to go back and re-loot everything.
Yeah, I think it actually works from, like, a checkpoint system.
It definitely does, and what's up with that? Like, why? No. It's a PlayStation 4. Like, I don't know. Seems like, please, for the remaster, at least upgrade that just a little bit. But it's okay. It's fine. I wouldn't put Ellie in the soul cannon, although if she whistles one more time, I might.
What's wrong with her whistling?
It's annoying. And, you know, I might put her in the soul cannon if she shows up as an ominous glow when I'm doing my special listen one more time. Why didn't you? That's another. I'm like just whining about little things. I'm enjoying the game. I also enjoy whining about little things. Why does she even show up when you listen?
It's so, you know, like if they're like, I'll get this guy, you can know where they are.
I know, but it's just so, it's like she's standing right there. Obviously, I'm not listening for her. Also, like 3 different times, I tried to grab a guy from around a corner, and because she was in the way, I missed. So maybe she will go in the soul cannon after all. Also, I continue to avoid using my flashlight at all costs because I could not get through the shaking animation the first time. It did not work. So we're doing a no flashlight run.
Wow. Any percent no flashlight.
That's not true. I'm using it a little, but we're using it as little as possible.
I feel like I just wandered around with my flashlight on, like at all times when I played that game.
Sometimes I do that in real life. I was so embarrassed. Like, sometime last month, somebody was like, you know your phone flashlight is on the train. I was so embarrassed. I almost cried.
You didn't almost cry.
I didn't almost cry, but I felt embarrassed and weird about it the entire ride after that.
It's just think about it like your headlights out.
I guess, but
they should have flashed their flashlight at you. That's the polite thing to do.
That would have been the right thing to do. Anyway, yeah, I'm doing okay at this game. It's just it's stressful for me to play because I'm like only just good enough at it to get through. I'm getting a little better at shooting over time. I feel like I need to be playing more shooting games more often in order to like maintain that level of ability to shoot. Whenever the last time was, this was several years ago, whenever the last time was that Click Like Boyfriend and I were playing Borderlands regularly, like I got much better at my shooting mechanics. But now I've been playing punchy games and the skills have atrophied. Anyway, more on those punchy games in a bit, but I really only played like a couple more play sessions of The Last of Us because I was focused on Judgment, which we'll talk about in a little bit, but I hope to finish it before the next 6-week side quest. The next 6-week side quest, I swear, I'm going to come in and be like, I played 20 games. I swear.
I'm ready for it.
I swear. 3-hour episode.
I'm ready to be the one who feels all sad that I don't have as many games.
It's never going to happen because I know you. I know you at the end of the year. You're like, well, I could just play one more and add to my little total. Okay, anyway. That's The Last of Us. Still enjoying it. Too bad about the car.
Yeah.
Pretty brutal. Guy's partner who died for that thing, and I crashed it in like 2 hours.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to you.
All right, back to my Xbox adventures.
Xbox!
Also from Game Pass, I played Signalis, which is a new sort of PS1 era inspired survival horror type game.
Whoa.
Yes. The wonders of Game Pass is I probably wouldn't have bought it because I was like, this might be too hard or scary for me, so I'll give it a little bit of a try and see what I think. And I really loved it. It's amazing, like there's a lot of you have 6 inventory slots. Sort of the classic survival horror thing of inventory management.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of running back and forth between picking stuff up to dropping things off in a box. And something about that takes a little bit of the fear factor out. You're running through the same hallway, there's that enemy that sees you and screams at you again. It's like, yeah. I'm on my way. Leave me alone. I'll be out of your hair in just a second. It's especially funny. It's always scary. There's these little guys that pop up through the floors. And the first time they do it in any room, it's always scary. Yeah. But then when I have to run through the room again and they pop up through the floors, it's like, oh, hello there.
Hey, little dudes.
How are you doing today? Because I'm ready for them, Yeah, I'm like, okay, they're under the floor. They're going to come up and say hello. So one of the gimmicks of this that's sort of, I guess, Resident Evil-y, is when you kill an enemy, they don't permanently stay dead.
Yeah.
So that's a way to encourage you not to just go through a section and kill every enemy that you see.
Clear out a safe space.
Yeah. You can burn enemies. They introduced this a little bit later in the game, and that will keep them dead. So if, say, there's like one guy like right outside a safe room, you might be like, okay, I'm gonna burn this one so that I simply don't have to deal with it when I'm coming back here every single time. But the burning stuff is even more limited than other resources, so you don't want to go through like a whole section and burn every single enemy either, because you just simply won't have enough. Anyways, for the plot, it's one of those that, you know, like it all sort of makes sense holistically, but I couldn't like go through it like logically and be like, okay, so this happens and this and this and this is why, right? It's very Silent Hillian, that sort of type of horror inspired of like, it makes sense, but also it really doesn't make sense. It's like there's a lot of puzzle pieces and some of them fit together, but then they don't fit with this one. But then if you take it out of this puzzle, like, oh, I put it over here, suddenly that makes sort of sense, you know? And sort of following that sort of, I guess, dream logic type thing.
Okay.
So just to say that if this sounds very disjointed, it is very disjointed, but in a way that's compelling, at least to me. So you're there's this system, you're in sort of a big sort of surveillance state. I think it's the Republic that has been like has fought the Empire and is now like establishing its own place in the world. But it's kind of like this surveillance state thing that's sort of watching you all the time. There's like a great empress sort of that's watching over it. So it's not really a republic in the traditional sense, I guess. So there's also a system of replicants and gestalts, so sort of near thing, but those are just words that mean things also.
Thank you.
So replicants are like mechanical bodies that they produce in copies. So they take a brainwave of a human, essentially, and just copy it into these replicants so that they can sort of do the abilities of that human. Like, they can fulfill that function in a lot of different places. But they're careful to, like, suppress the actual memory part of that, so that that doesn't get muddled with, like, their sense of identity and all of their tasks. So you can already see that seems like it's a problem, right? Yeah. You're like, that seems like it's a problem. And all of this is sort of based on this weird technology that they found called bioresonance. So it's like bioresonance is sort of like psychic powers, sort of like they can do all these sort of mysterious things, and it's created sort of this weird alternate future where they've just focused on like this bioresonance stuff. So there's a lot of stuff that's really advanced, and then they have like video cassettes and like cassette tapes and stuff because they just stopped like progressing in those areas to focus all entirely on this one thing. So it creates kind of a cool aesthetic in that way. Anyway, you're a replicant who has come to this mysterious facility where a woman, a gestalt, who's like a human, that's what they call humans, a woman named Alina Seo works, and you're there to find her. But this facility has sort of fallen under this weird pandemic situation where all of the replicants and gestalts are catching the same disease that progresses at the same rate, which is weird, right? Mm-hmm. And it's turned all these replicants into like walking sort of zombie things. And so you go deeper and deeper into this facility. It becomes less and less of a logical space. And you're trying to find Alina Seo. Only wait, since you're a replicant, are you really the same version of yourself throughout this whole game?
Ooh.
Because there's also this other lady named Ariane, who you're also looking for, Ariane Young. But you're also looking for her. But is that the same replicant that's looking for her? And also, there's these weird flashes of your human memory. And where is that coming from? And there's these other people that are stuck in this space with you. And, like, like, what's this bioresonance doing? There's like this commander there has a very strong bioresonance, and she got sick, and then suddenly everyone else was getting sick. And it's sort of this weird situation where everybody's memories are sort of leaking into each other and messing with their sense of identity. It's very cool, and I quite like it. It's sort of a thing where I finished it, I was like, that was good, and then I expected to sort of, like, move on with my life, and then, like, I was laying in bed that night, and like, but wait, how does that tie into, and the red eye that I wrote about, what does that mean? It's like the science and the magic and wait, what if that girl is that girl? It's very cool. It's fun. It's a fun, thinky one. It makes you want to put the pieces together, but they don't quite fit, and that's what's compelling about trying to put them together, I guess. Anyway, I really recommend it.
On ye old Xbox.
I'm also sorry that all the games I play, that I like them. Because I feel like I talk a very long time about them.
No, just kidding. Well, speaking about replicants, I guess, this was at the very beginning of the 6 weeks. Like, this was, like, really, like, just after we recorded last podcast. But I finished Citizen Sleeper.
Ooh.
Which was, like I said, way at the beginning. I did really enjoy the game. I'll reiterate what I said on the podcast and what I think I said on the last 6 week show, which is, like, all the reviews are like, this game is so hard, this game is so hard, this game is so hard. This game is not hard.
I will say again, as I've said, I found it difficult at the beginning, and then I hit a certain quest, and then it was never difficult again.
I didn't even find it especially difficult at the beginning. You just have to not take dumb risks. I don't know. Maybe I just got lucky and I happened to do the right quests that made it easier first, and I just never found it hard. But I was never, like, out of stabilizer, so I never got to situations where I was rolling very few dice. If you weren't following along for these episodes, Citizen Sleeper is this, like, dice-based sci-fi situation where you are this replicated version of a human that's been made so you can, like, do slave labor basically to work off their debts, but you've escaped and now you're living on the Eye, which is this space station out in space, because that's where space stations are, in space, and you go around gigging and rolling dice to see how well you gig and making friends along the way. I, like, didn't realize, I realized afterwards that maybe I should have tried to get more endings by, like, accepting leaving this ship and then going back and continuing to play. But I got to, like, all of the endings, and over again I was like, no, I don't want to just become part of the plants. I want to make a life here.
Yeah.
And that kind of thing. I did not let my pals escape on the ship because I didn't want to go. Maybe I should have gone with them, but I didn't want to go. I let them go. What?
I let them go, and I didn't go.
I couldn't figure out a way to just let them go.
The way that I didn't really make sense to me, so that's
nice. Fair. Well done. I didn't go because I was like, oh man, like, I'm so close to finishing this other quest that I want to finish. And I don't want to go.
Yeah, that's how it was for me too. Like, I kept getting these, like, you could leave with us. And I'm like, oh, but, I told Moritz I'd be around at the ship bay.
Exactly.
I don't want to leave him by himself. And I got this friend over that, I can distill the mushrooms with her now, and that's fun. It just was like, there wasn't any temptation to leave.
Yeah. I played, the first DLC had come out when I played. I think the second one came out, like, a week or so after I finished, and I had so thoroughly sucked the eye dry of any quest that I was not going to go back to play just, like, one new quest. But the DLC quest was good and was in some ways, like, I will acknowledge the DLC quest was more challenging than most of the quest lines. That's just mostly because it gave you a lot to do at once. But at that point, though, like, I could reroll all of my dice. Like, it was not hard for me to get the supplies. This DLC quest is like, there's a refugee ship that was being held out there, and you, like, help people basically do an illegal supply run for them. And by the time I got to this point, it was like, I could pretty much game the system to get as many high-level dice as I need on any given turn. So I didn't... Like, they do recommend it as a late-game quest. And I think I was doing that at a time where it's like, well, I didn't have any other time sensitive quests going on, so it wasn't hard to just be like, okay, like I am just gonna go gather supplies for this, and that's fine. I can use all my dice on that. I do think like it would be interesting for a version of this game that had more things that actually really legitimately had a time limit. I think there are so many things that had like sort of fake time limits to them. And if there were more like actual choices that I had to make, I think that would have made it more, even if like the actual difficulty of what I was doing wasn't more challenging, I think it would have made it a more mentally challenging experience to have to be like, you know, does the ship get finished getting built, whether I help or not, right? Kind of thing. Or does... I don't know, the only version of that sort of was like with the bounty hunter, but I didn't even intentionally, like I finished some quest and he left, and I was like, oh, wait a minute.
Yeah, that happened to me too. I was like in the middle of his quest line. I didn't realize that finishing Fang's stuff would mean that he would leave.
Yeah. Which is fine, whatever. But I was like, oh. So anyway, you know, really fun little game. I mean, get ready to read a lot, but really fun little game. I enjoyed it a lot. Yeah, I think the only problem is like there's just not enough left to do, and the DLC, to my understanding, is really just like, here's another kind of like chunky quest, and the quests are now too easy. If it's like if it's the only thing I'm focusing on, it's too easy. Yeah. So I would play a Citizen Sleeper 2. But I don't think the DLC is going to tempt me back for like 2 more quests.
Yeah, I think if I did the DLC, I would just start a new game, probably.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So I played Mutazione, which is like a narrative herbology soap opera.
I was going to say descriptive in a sarcastic way. Like, that is descriptive, but I still mean it in a sarcastic way.
So you're, what's her name? Kai, I think is her name. And you've come to, like, this, island of, I think they call them mutants. There's, like, this meteor crash that happened, apparently, that killed sort of the area, but also sort of changed the humans there into like sort of animal-y or green type beings, like just different looking beings. So they act like humans, but they don't, they have different looks. And Kai is there to visit her grandfather, who has become part of this community. He came there with like a group of scientists a long time ago, but he was the only one who stuck around. And became part of that community because he's dying, essentially. So he wants his family to be there. So basically you spend a week there. Your grandfather teaches you, like, the way of the plants of this area. So there's a bunch of gardens, and there's, like, different types of plants. And you plant them, and you play songs to cause them to grow faster, essentially. So it's sort of a straightforward thing. You can choose who to talk to in different times, so you can follow like different subplots if you want, or you can leave them alone. I think I did all the subplots, essentially. So you get to know all of the different residents. There's a lot of drama going on. There's a woman who's having a baby but wants to break up with the person that she's with. There was this big tragedy that happened where one of the members of the community, in sort of a spiritual guiding with your grandfather, sort of lost his mind, got like left behind in the spirit plane, and burned his house down. That caused like a great strain on the community, so that's sort of a casting thing. There's like 2 older members of the community who really want to date but won't tell each other. There's a little dude who likes to fish and sing while he fishes. I loved him.
I see the herbology soap opera now. I get it.
So you're growing plants, you're talking to the people around there, you're dealing with their problems, and eventually coming to sort of a resolution. It was interesting. I really liked it. I wish that Kai ran faster, but that's about my only complaint. Come on, Kai, you're on the swim team.
Move
a little faster. The other one that I played, I was feeling for something a little Halloween-y. So I got a little spooky, but not like horror. So I got this visual novel called Corpse Factory on my Switch. It's sort of like, do you know Death Note?
I mean, like, I don't
Vaguely
know Death Note, but a little.
It's a little like Death Note, but like a little less supernatural, I guess. You're playing as Noriko, who runs this website called Corpse Girl, where like it promises that like if you send in a picture and like phone number of a victim, that victim will die. But all Noriko really does is like take the photo and edit it to look like a corpse and send them a picture of their own corpse, with like the intention being that will somehow tap into some sort of supernatural power and cause it to happen, because it happened once in the past, and she was like, whoa, neat. And she's really trying to get it to happen again. It's interesting. It's like, so Death Note is like, there's this guy, he finds a death note that's tied to like a Shinigami, and when he writes someone's name in it, they die.
Yes,
can, like,
I saw the
specify
Simpsons
things.
parody trailer.
Yes.
I know.
And that's sort of like, it's very like dramatic, like over dramatic, you know, like there's like the dramatic like potato chip eating scene, you know, that's like a meme. And like dramatic cat and mouse games going on. And like Corpse Factory takes it a little bit more seriously than Death Note, I think, which simultaneously makes it feel like more and less exploitative than Death Note. Like there are parts where I'm like, oh, okay, that's very real, when sort of describing like how this helps Noriko feel like she has some control over life, right?
Yeah.
In terms of her own personal situation. It's just a very bad way to find that outlet for control.
Yeah.
And there's parts where it's like, oh, okay, you're going a little farther. It's sort of a thing where it feels like halfway through, the writer was like, okay, I'm kind of bored of writing this now. And just like, okay, we'll finish it up. Like, you change perspectives, and it's like the first one that's Noriko is very, like, complete, and then the second one with Kojiro is like, oh boy, there was just a very sudden shift there when you wanted to be done with this, right?
Yeah.
And then the last one is, like, super short, and, like, they just wanted it to be done. So it was an interesting play/read. But not necessarily a good one. But definitely Halloween-y, so I got what I wanted out of it, I guess.
Well, I'll do the short one. The other podcast game that I played, I didn't play Age of Empires or We Are OFK, because I had played a lot of Age of Mythology, and I felt like that counts. But obviously I also played some of Game Awards chosen indie, Neon White.
Oh, yeah.
I think I only played a little more than I've played on the podcast, but I intend to continue playing because I was really enjoying it. I think it's going to be a good counterpart to our Ollie Ollie world playing, in that it is similarly this kind of like I love little games within a game, you know? I love little levels. So we'll probably continue on with that because I was enjoying it. But I don't have that much to add beyond what I was saying. Like, I think I'm going to get a little bit too into it, but I think it's hard enough that I'm not going to be able to get so into it that I get too obsessive. We'll find out.
We'll see.
Hopeful this December will be less stressful than previous 2 Decembers, so I won't necessarily need to have a game that I, like, rely on quite so much. But I'll beef up this segment a little bit. Should I get the new Pokemon games?
Apparently they're very fun, but, like, riddled with performance issues.
That's
like, and not just like,
course,
the trees are ugly. Like, the camera will, like, clip through the ground frequently.
See, we're going to talk about camera issues in my final game, aren't we? So
I guess so, yeah.
Can't avoid camera issues.
I did, like, they have, like, this issue where, like, characters are at, like, super low frame rate, even, like, close up to you, so they look like stop motion. Yeah. There was, like, this one gif I saw of, like, classroom kids, like, wobbling back and forth. I was like, that's charming looking, actually.
Yeah.
Like, I see why it's a problem, but I kind of like it. I kind of like the vibe.
Oh, you've been totally gaslit.
I don't think that's what gaslighting is, Mel.
I know. Sorry. I'll probably get it eventually. I just have to decide. It's like, do I get it? Well, it's gonna come down to, like, if Clickbait Boyfriend's mom and sister, well, sister mostly, are very into the Pokemon games. So it's like, okay, we probably will have to get it. So it's like, we can trade and stuff, battle. Right. Should I throw it back to you? Or should I do my big one? How many do you have
2 more.
2 more? Okay, so you should do one then.
Okay, last Xbox game. Pentiment just came out. Xbox exclusive, from Obsidian Games. It's, set in the 16th century. You are a artist named Andreas, working at a monastery scriptorium while you work on your masterpiece so that you can return to your home and open your workshop and get married. And there's been a murder!
A murder!
And your friend, one of the monks who worked with you in the scriptorium, is accused of the murder, and you just can't let that stand.
Cannot let it stand.
You must investigate the town to discover who among its residents in the abbey and the surrounding town area may have killed the visiting baron. It's very deeply historical. The art style is based on manuscripts and wood carvings from that time. So you're like a little guy, side-scrolling, and you're in like very old style, painting style. And it's full of historical trivia and facts that I treat like most historical fiction and sort of let wash over me. I don't really learn. I'm not very good at learning from historical fiction, but like it's good vibes, you know?
Yeah.
Like I'm like, yes, all of these historical events and people, you know, stuff going on. I'm familiar with Martin Luther. There's deeper cut references than that I'm not familiar with. But one of the big conversations at the beginning is you're talking to the Baron before he's murdered. And he's like, oh yes, Martin Luther. While he's going to like a Catholic church to get a very like traditionally produced like prayer book from the monastery scriptorium. And you're like, that's a little weird, my man.
Martin Luther.
Clearly you don't care very much about this. It's just like intellectual curiosity. So I got through all of Act 1, which is dealing with this murder, and then there's a time skip in Act 2.
Love a time skip.
That I've just started, and I'm very curious what will happen because I don't know if my choices in Act 1 were very good.
Uh-oh.
But I don't know if any option would have been good, to be fair. I avoided, like, the worst one. One of my roots of inquiry was like, oh, okay, no, I'm not going to bring this up to, like, the inspector when he comes because, like, that would be, like, morally repugnant of me to do.
Yeah.
And so thankfully I got enough evidence on someone else to be able to accuse them. But also I think maybe that was bad. It was certainly hypocritical. I made some hypocritical accusations to the inspector. That's kind of the fun of it. It's sort of Disco Elysium-y in that way, where Andreas is not as much of a mess as Mr. Disco Elysium, but he is a bit up in himself, I guess, and very like pompous, and very not knowing what the heck he's doing. But you know what? We dug up the monastery graveyard without permission, so that was fun.
Good.
We had a good time while we were falsely accusing people.
What would Martin Luther say?
I don't know. I don't know what he would say. Nail something to my door. I'm very excited to play more of it. It's very much my speed kind of game. So look forward to the next 6 weeks when I probably finish it.
Well, speaking of games that people finished, that's right. I finally finished Judgment, my last game.
Woo!
Woo! So it's time for some, pros and cons on Judgment. Like some spoilers coming, I guess. If you haven't finished Judgment, some spoilers for the endings. Broadly, really enjoyed it. Like, good game. Did good RGG stuff. Like, overall good. I do think that overall it did not hit for me with quite the same oomph as the Yakuza games. I think some of that is just by necessity. This is Judgment 1, so it's an entirely new cast of characters, and obviously it helps a lot with Like a Dragon, as I should call it now, that you build up a familiarity with a lot of the core cast over time. On one hand, I appreciated the more grounded story of it. On the other, I do love the over-the-top story of the classic Yakuza games.
I mean, there's still a guy who has a cane gun, right?
Yes. Yes. I think for me, what that sort of came down to, one of my biggest, a couple of story critiques. One is that I spent the middle third of the game, way ahead of Yagami and pals, right? I felt like the twist as relevant to Yagami's past, right, was pretty obvious when it was going to be pretty early on. Now maybe that's because, they're, literally, I mean, there's not an AD9 that's, an Adatech 9 that's, killing people, right? But there was just, a pretty big news story about this, Alzheimer's drug that has, questionable efficacy that is so expensive that it could break Medicare. So, maybe it's just that, I have thought about semi-fraudulent Alzheimer's drugs, and that's why it felt that way. But it seemed, not to say that I predicted, every single story beat or anything like that, but up through, and, more spoilers coming here, I guess. But, oh, yeah, they've been doing human testing, and, the guy from Yagami's case 3 years ago obviously was a human test subject. I think I got there many hours before Yagami got there. Part of that is also that this game does not trust that you remember anything that has happened in the game at any point.
What do you mean?
It's because it's a detective story and people have to explain things to each other over and over and over again.
Sure.
But they do have to explain things to each other over and over and over again.
Maybe I just needed it, because I don't remember being bothered by that.
I wasn't bothered by it. I was noticing it because I was like, this is handy, because I did take a big break in playing the game at one point. So it was like, oh, okay, I do appreciate that they have re-explained to me, what has happened in this story, 20 times. That's great. But eventually by the end, when I was playing it for more sustained stretches, I was like, oh my god, we don't have to explain who the one, stop telling everybody who the mole is, you freaking, this is a serial killer. It's an assassin serial killer. Why are you telling all these people? I understand telling a few people so that if he kills you, other people have the knowledge. But don't tell Genda. Don't tell your cop girlfriend who's his coworker. What are you doing? I was shocked that it didn't end with his prosecutor girlfriend getting kidnapped and like him having to save her before she got her eyeballs gouged out.
Only like bare, like she almost was, right?
Like, yes. But like I was shocked.
They didn't actually kidnap her. He stopped her before the kidnapping part.
But like my broader thematic thing that I wanted to talk to you about a little bit, because I know I've spent years wondering why you felt that Judge Eyes was the better title, and I know it can't just be because their eyes turn blue. Which, by the way, Clickbait Boyfriend, I feel like Clickbait Boyfriend and I could do a really great couple's costume where one of us is the mole and one of us is the dead researcher with blue eyes. I just need a black raincoat and like color contacts and a lab coat. But I assume that can't be why you felt like Judge Eyes was the better title. It's like I did feel like a little bit that some of the very final act revelations like pulled its thematic punches just a little bit. And I don't mean this in like, this is not necessarily a bad thing. It was just like that's an interesting choice kind of thing. So I'll say first that where the story like sort of hooked me back in for a moment, not that I wasn't hooked, like I was enjoying the story, but was like once they found the lab and like it was like haha, like the cops are in on it too, like I was like, okay, this is interesting because I actually don't know where the story goes from here. Like I don't know, now that they've been like also the chief prosecutor is in on this, like how do they actually wrap this up? And so one little critique is like, it just sort of seemed like they decided that the story needed to end. And so like eventually some people like turned coat and decided to do that. Right? Yeah. Like I'm glad that the stupid bald cop decided to help. But also like, oh my god, Yagami's line of questioning in that trial, like why did the judge let it go on for so long? Why did they let him talk?
It's a courtroom drama. Come on.
I know.
Who cares?
It's fine. I was willing to wave my hands at that, but it's like, oh my god, like plenty of these things happening. It's like there's still this like serial killer out there. Like some of this stuff doesn't really make sense. So people decided to do the right thing here. But anyway. For me, where it like pulled the thematic punch, and this is where I thought the Judge Eyes thing was going. Where I thought the Judge Eyes thing was going was it's like, okay, well, Yagami's over here on this side of like the law, right? The law is where the judgment is supposed to be passed. But everybody on this Alzheimer's drug side, I mean, ultimately in the end, it seems like everybody on this Alzheimer's drug side was mostly in it for the money. But it seemed, at some elements of the story, that actually they were in it for the like, it's okay if we kill 20 people doing human tests if we get to save millions and millions and millions of people in the end. And so I thought where the story might be going is having to have like an actual confrontation between those two points of view of like Yagami being like, the law is the judgment, and these people being like, but what about all the people and their families with like dementia that this will save is the judgment? And like who is right? And so I did sort of feel like the fact that at the end it was like, just kidding, it would never have worked, was a little bit like, I understand why they had to do that to tie up the story. They basically didn't have any other option than that happening. And, you know, of course, it's certainly more believable than being like, yes, there actually was a miraculous Alzheimer's drug in Kamurocho in 2018 or whenever this story is set or something like that, right? But, yeah, to me, I was anticipating something that was like a little more challenging and interesting. And when it was like, nope, he injected himself and he's dead, I was like, oh, okay.
I'll be really interested, actually, for you to play Lost Judgment, because I do think just there is more of a viewpoint clash in that. Yeah. It's more about the viewpoint clash. It's just that I personally think the viewpoint clash is one, stupid.
Yeah.
And two, they don't come to any sort of conclusion on it, in a way that's stupid.
Great. Well, I look forward to that.
Very like, well, you got a point, Buster.
Yeah.
But that's bad. Very the conclusion of Lost Judgment without spoilers. Yeah. So I'll be curious to hear what you think about that. To be honest, I don't know. I don't remember why I thought Judge Eyes, if there's a specific reason. It sounds cooler, is probably the base reason, to be honest.
See, I saw that the Click Boyfriend, he was like, no. Like, Judge Eyes is a dumb title. Like, it couldn't be called that.
He doesn't see that. He doesn't have the vision.
I'll close with some quick positives. The side quests, unequivocally better structured than in Yakuza. Partially because, like, he's a detective, right? So it's like, it actually makes sense that he is getting side quests, even if it's weird that, like, bartenders give it to him, but whatever. But even, like, beyond just him being a detective, just, like, Yagami being, like, I won't say law-abiding, because, like, we all see what he does to these thugs in the streets, but, like, a quote-unquote law-abiding citizen who, like, lives in this town. Am I really meant to believe he just, like, sleeps on his couch every single night, by the way? Does he not have an apartment?
I don't know.
It's messed up. But like, just as someone who lives in this town consistently and is not, like, perpetually being murdered or whatever, it makes more sense that he's able to build up these, like, existing relationships than Kiryu, who is a criminal. But one of the quests is a mahjong quest, so that's lame. Don't ever do that again. And I really feel like the girlfriend options could have been better.
I just think I think I did like half of most of their quests, and then I totally ignored girlfriends in Yakuza 7.
I liked
and
my
if there was any in Lost Judgment, I didn't find them.
I liked my spooky psychic girlfriend. That was cool. She's an adult, so, like,
that's
worked
good.
out. I didn't love when it was, like, the girl who's been harassed by perverts this entire game.
Yeah.
I clocked that girl as being, like, 15 years old. So, like, I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. Sure. But yeah, psychic girlfriend. I think I eventually got somewhere I was like, I just have to be done. But, like, I would have finished the quest line with the busy girl, too. Career woman.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, good game. Probably give myself a little bit of a breather before starting Yakuza 7, but Yakuza 7 is going to be next.
Yeah, I'm so excited for Yakuza 7.
It's going to be dangerous for me.
Alright, I have one last game. I started playing Harvestella, one of Square Enix's approximately 500 releases in the last month.
Is that one of the Nintendo Direct farm sims?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the one with the Season of Death, Madelyn.
Okay. They are all the same game.
No, this one has the Death Season.
Okay.
Anyway, I really love it. It's so good. It scratches that itch in my brain of it's got near vibes and lots of things to do.
And a death season.
I love both those things. So
yeah.
So you're a traveler. You wake up during quietus to a mysterious fairy lady who gives you a mysterious message. And then someone finds you when quietus is over, but you've lost your memories. And they set you up on a farm on the outside of town. But first there's like this big thing that falls from the sky, and there's a girl in armor in it who is possibly from the future, possibly from another dimension. And there's something weird going on with these things called the seas lights that are all around here, which basically are what like regulate the seasons. So the town you're in like gets like all the different seas lights, so it has like seasons. But if you go close to a seas light, it's like always that season.
Got it.
So there's an area that's like always fall. There's an area where the cherry blossoms are always blooming. There's a beach area where it's always summer, right? But all these seas lights have been acting weird in various degrees. And so to help Aria, who's the girl who's possibly from the future, and also just because, you feel called to do it, you start investigating these seas lights to see what's wrong with them. It seems to be that it's pulling things in from Aria's time, because you go towards these seas lights and you're like, those are some skyscrapers. The spring one was like a whole lab pulled in from Aria's time that was sort of meshing with the local wildlife in bad ways. and had like a living weapon in it, essentially, that you had to deal with. It's very good vibes. And also you're farming. So everything sort of plays into each other. Like, you have to do your farm work in order to make money so that you can get things for your questing, you know, so you can cook meals so that your stamina and health can keep up, so you can upgrade your weapons, so that you can, you know, do quests for different people or deliver meals to town so you can make a little extra money. And while you're on your quests, you get more seeds and stuff, so you can grow a greater variety of things and cook a greater variety of things. So everything sort of flows in a really nice, like, cycle, right? I'm on chapter 3B now. I'm investigating the summer seas light. And it has gotten a little bit like, oh my god, I have so many things to do. I just want to investigate the summer seas light, but Asil is writing me every single day because his quest is continuing. And it's like, Asil, give me a day. Give me a day. I do want to keep doing your quest, but I want to go to the seas light, and you're in opposite directions, my boy.
I can't believe that Stardew Valley doesn't work for you. This is the same game.
No, there's not enough JRPG-ness. Is the thing in Stardew Valley. Like, this is just like, if it didn't have like the near vibes, like this world is on the brink of collapse, like people are eking their way through, but there's like sort of an unknown future, and there's the season of death, and there's bad vibes happening from places, and of greater mystery, I wouldn't be as invested in it, right? I don't want to just go to town and, like, give townspeople gifts. You know?
Really a mistake that Animal Crossing didn't fold in a season of death.
I would play Animal Crossing with the season of death. Are you kidding me? KK Slider's outside playing, like, an elegy.
Can you imagine? I'm trying to imagine the Nintendo Direct announcer being like, new DLC for Animal Crossing.
I mean, he did the Harvestella was in the Nintendo Direct.
I know,
you can hear him. I can still hear him say, the season of death. But yeah, it's really good. It's very pretty. Very fun. I like the characters that I've met so far. The music is so good. I will probably be playing this for the foreseeable future, because it seems like it's long so far, especially if I continue to make no progress on main quests now. But the Season of Death is coming in another 4 days, so I'm very excited as to what that will entail. Maybe it'll just be me staying inside the whole time, being sad. But maybe something exciting will happen. Who knows? I'll brief you next time on my Season of Death adventures.
Well,
I can't plant new crops because they'll all die, so.
Listeners, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Talk This.
It's dangerous to podcast alone.
Do you love every game you play on Xbox Game Pass like Emma? Do you wish that the lab and Judgment had been in the Millennium Tower instead of us going to the Millennium Tower and following that guy out? Come on. Like I do. Did you know that The Last of Us doesn't take place just in Boston? Are you looking forward to the Season of Death coming? That's what I call the 2 months between now and 2 months from now, when the sun will not set any later than it does now.
Winter in Boston is just the Season of Death.
If you have thoughts about any of those things or anything else we discussed on this episode, hit us up on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram. I hesitate to say Twitter because we're recording this live on Sunday at noon. Is Twitter even still up now?
Who knows?
And YouTube. at Talk This Podcast. You can also visit our website, www.talkthispodcast.com, where you can read all about the show, check out the games that are in the hat, and read our blog featuring long-running series Clickbait Boyfriend and Split Screen and various other bloggy stuff. But most importantly, if you enjoy the show, you should subscribe. We're on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spotify, Pandora Podcasts, online and on the app, Overcast, Pocket Cast, anywhere that you can find podcasts, wherever you found the podcast today, you can find and subscribe to Talk This.
I did make us a co-host page.
I don't know what co-host is, but you can find us on co-host at Talk This Podcast.
You gotta keep up with the Twitter dying stuff, Madelyn.
I know what Mastodon is. I haven't heard of co-host.
I don't know what Mastodon is. I mean, I do, but I looked at it once and I was like, nope.
So we're not on Mastodon.
I don't know what this is.
But we are on co-host, whatever that is. Next week, there are games that we are talking about.
Yeah, there sure are. It's Live Alive.
It's Live Alive. It is Live Alive. I remember that now.
And the Stanley Parable, Ultra Deluxe.
Right. Are either of those on... Live Alive is on Nintendo Switch, right?
Yep.
Okay, we'll have to fight about who gets the Switch over Thanksgiving, so stay tuned for that argument in my apartment. We're probably due to get a second Switch. But the moment I do that, they'll announce the Switch too. Anyway, that's in next week and our Thanksgiving podcast. In 2 weeks, like I said, it'll be like games for when the sun sets at 4 p.m.
Exciting.
Or something more interesting than that. But listeners, that's it for the show. Thanks for tuning in. I hope that this week you have lots of helpful local shopkeepers and spooky psychics to help you through the coming season of death.